Thank you guys for tuning in for another Stay Fligh Podcast. My name is Baby J. I have William Chism here from River Remedy. So, William, I'll kick it over to you, let you do a quick intro, a little bit back about yourself as well as your cannabis background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Baby J. Joe, it's great to be here, and we appreciate the invite for River Remedy. My name is William Chism. I'm a Mississippi native, born and raised. Went off to school in the Northeast and began my career in the world of finance in New York City. But a couple years back, when cannabis was legalized in Mississippi, really jumped on the opportunity to come back to Mississippi. And a little over 2 years ago, we started River Remedy. And it's been a crazy 2 years, but here we are today, and excited to be here talking to you about it.
And I know that, y'all have first and foremost, River Remedy has an excellent reputation in the state. You have an excellent reputation in the state, so thank you for coming on. I know that, like you said, you went to school in the Northeast, and you didn't go to just any school, from my understanding, correct? You went to a pretty well-established, Ivy League school, correct?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to have the opportunity to do my undergrad at Yale, and it was a really amazing experience. And I think what's interesting is growing up, I guess, as a college student in the Northeast. Obviously grew up in Mississippi, but then going off to college, cannabis was legalized in Connecticut as a medical program in, I believe, 2012. And at the time, it was really not something that was actively discussed. It wasn't really the sort of topic that everyone was interested in, but it was happening in the background. So it was interesting to sort of be in a more mature market well before it ever became a topic that people were interested in Mississippi. So after going from Connecticut to New York, sort of a similar deal where it's a little bit more normal. The laws are just a few years ahead. And it's been interesting to come back to Mississippi, and really didn't get to apply any specific lessons from those states in my experience just living and working in Connecticut and New York. But having been around it felt natural to come back to Mississippi and try to get the program going here.
Yeah. It's like, and the reason I even bring that up is, we've had other podcasts where we've talked about stereotypes. And let's be real here. I mean, at the end of the day, like, whenever people think about cannabis that aren't in the industry, like, Yale, Harvard, Brown, Ivy League schools and Ivy League education don't come into play. That doesn't usually that's not the first thing someone's going to think. And having someone that, someone like yourself that went to a really high level school, worked in finance, obviously a pretty well-versed businessman, now coming into this program, understands cannabis on a really deeper level than just anybody out here. I think that speaks to something. I think that really does speak to something about the industry. It's about the people in the industry. Obviously speaks volumes about y'all's company, to say the least. And just, when you were still in the Northeast working in finance, in school, wherever, did you see a lot of people using cannabis that were working in like high level industries like that?
First of all, that's all very flattering, and I appreciate all the kind words. Cannabis usage around me was not something that was especially common. I do, have these recollections in college. Obviously, it's around you in social settings, and it wasn't something that was really part of the Mississippi culture that I grew up in. And not to say that it wasn't there in the traditional market, as they say, but looking back. On my college experience, I was a college athlete, and every off season there would be what we sort of deemed surgery season, where everybody was getting their season-ending injuries repaired in the off season, and opiates were just everywhere. And at the time, the opioid crisis was obviously brewing in the country, but it wasn't really top of mind, especially for college kids. At least it wasn't for me. Looking back on it, I really wish that cannabis was an outlet that was more accepted and, among the community at a legal level up there. Just looking back on it, it's sort of scary to know that these opioids were so accessible to kids who were so young. But yeah, to answer your question more directly, I didn't have a whole lot of interaction with folks in my professional life that were interacting with cannabis, at least not around me. It was obviously here and there, but I became really interested in the business side of things once it became legalized via the Initiative 65, or at least the program was voted in the 2020 election, and that really set off a chain of events where I got very interested in the industry, and first, from an economic standpoint, saw it as a once in a generation type opportunity to be on the ground floor of an industry in my home state, where I was really actively seeking stronger economic ties. I was trying to find ways to invest in Mississippi, whether that be at a local restaurant or some other business or some other real estate opportunity. But cannabis came around, it really came out of nowhere. And the threshold with which it passed, 74%, I believe, is the number. It was a huge wake-up call because that's sort of unprecedented.
Yeah.
And it was extremely exciting. And one thing led to another. Eventually got under the hood of a few companies with some people that we planned to partner with in Mississippi, some of whom we ended up partnering with, and got the opportunity over the next few months in early 2021 to look at other opportunities in other states just to get a feel for how these businesses run, what actually leads them to be able to make money, what's their cost structure, and learned very quickly a couple of really important things. I mean, I'm living and breathing it right now, but these are very, very complicated businesses up close and personal, particularly as a vertically integrated company. What a lot of people don't realize, or they might not appreciate, is that a vertically integrated cannabis company is like 3 or 4 businesses under one roof, and they're all very difficult. There's indoor medical grade agriculture. There's food processing and manufacturing and packaging. There's logistics. There's brick and mortar retail. There's a distribution component with the sales force, obviously, as you know, all in the most really difficult regulatory environment that you could imagine in an emerging market where there's not a legacy cannabis culture. That's a lot of things to overcome. And I think it's extremely challenging to run one of these businesses well. And I applaud everybody who's gotten into the industry trying to give it a crack, because as you and I both know, it's a challenge to run these things. And we mentioned stereotypes about people operating in cannabis. I mean, it is the industry is comprised of extremely hardworking individuals. That's the biggest positive sort of, I don't want to say surprise, but thing that I've noticed is that from the very beginning, a lot of the operators that I met who are coming maybe from a more traditional background or from other states display an extremely hard work ethic. Extremely strong work ethic rather, and it's been really fun to work with those individuals trying to do something obviously that makes sense business wise, but do good for people too.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing is like you touched on it, and there's so many different questions I could ask based on what you just went through. I mean, but I think one of the biggest things that is tried and true, and really is that there's, especially in a vertical, there's so many different areas and so many different businesses wrapped into one that, I have a lab coat on, not because I think lab coats are cool to wear or anything, but because I was just in the back processing help with vape formulations and different stuff like that. I mean, that's just part of the business that we're in. Like, I know that you are the CEO, but I'm sure that you wear many different hats every single day when you're in the facility or working with cultivation or doing whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that's also something that I find to be fascinating is cannabis has given me an opportunity, as well as a lot of other people, to not only learn just one part of the business, but learn the business holistically and really look at it that way. Because as in any other retail-based business, any consumer-based business, you're going to have interconnectivity. Sales is hinging on production. Production is only going on what sales is asking for. And sales is really only producing demand from production based on what the consumer is saying. And all that could change within 3 months, if not sooner. So, I mean, you have to be hardworking. You have to have a really strong work ethic. I just can't agree more on what you're saying, about the individuals I've come across as well. I mean, the ones that make it and have come from successful backgrounds. Yeah.
For sure. I agree with everything you said. I can't take credit for sort of coming at it from this angle, but I did hear someone once say that if you were thinking about getting into cannabis, you should just do what you do best right now and apply that to cannabis, because there's such a need for talent in pretty much every way. If you're good at accounting, you need accountants. If you're good at marketing, we certainly need marketing people. Same goes for sales or manufacturing. It's an industry that's extremely, I don't want to say immature, but it's a nascent industry where there's a desperate need for talent, and we're trying to cram 50 to 100 years of manufacturing and other lessons learned in these more mature industries like traditional food and beverage or manufacturing into just a few years. And what that results in is a real meritocracy. And at our company, we're really proud of the fact that we have so many internal promotes that people came in literally trimming or defoliating, and they're some of those important people in the facility now simply because they got a shot. And we don't see that kind of upward mobility in other industries. At least I don't see that. And it provides an opportunity for people to really improve their own station and to build a career. And the magic of it all is that typically that can be accomplished with just really hard work. These businesses, as you know, are extremely capital intensive, people very cost conscious. So it requires people to do more with less. And that means the hard work, there's a premium on that. And for people, if they want to work hard and they want to put that extra effort in, there will be opportunities. So if anybody's listening that's thinking about getting into the space, do what you do best and just apply this cannabis, because I promise you there's a need for it.
Yeah, 100,000%. I never really looked at it like that, but I think that you're 1,000,000% correct. I mean, if you're really good at accounting, hey, cannabis needs plenty of accountants. Now you talk about, the economics behind cannabis, and just looking at, and, before you got into this industry in Mississippi, you were looking at different economic opportunities to invest into the state of Mississippi. As we know, living in the state of Mississippi, there's not a whole lot of, economic stimulation, outside of the industrial sector, I would say. What have you seen, or what is your opinion on the economic stimulation from the cannabis industry thus far in the state of Mississippi?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the opportunities in Mississippi in particular, I can't think of any other industries that are really in their early stages. It's not a major technology hub as much as we'd love it to be. There's real estate opportunities, but really cannabis represents an opportunity for a very capital intensive and labor intensive industry to emerge and thrive. So over the last couple of years, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in this industry, both from in-state and out of state. Those are dollars that are used in the construction of facilities or retrofits. They're used for operational expenses. They're used for labor and salaries, and all of those things combined result in a small but very capital-intensive industry. And I think that people should approach that with caution as operators, for sure. These businesses take a lot of money to get off the ground, and to if they're managed irresponsibly, it could go wrong very quickly, because you've got to consider the type of business you're in as it relates to the broader supply chain. Before I get too much into that, just to answer your question, I do think it's a major opportunity for people to come in and earn wages that are above other sort of entry level roles. I'm not aware of any cannabis companies in Mississippi that pay less than double the minimum wage for most entry level positions. That's just uncommon. But in cannabis, if you're a cultivator, you have these really long cycle times, a lot of capital tied up in these harvest cycles, and you can run your business into the ground in about 6 weeks if you're on a curve. Whereas on the processing side, much shorter cycle times, a lot more rapid fire. You're able to move more quickly with a bit more dynamic pivots. But when you combine those businesses together, they've got to talk to each other. One has outputs that become the inputs for the other. And then when you combine sales and distribution, it's a whole beast. So you're really trying to do a whole lot of things. And I would encourage people to try to keep it simple. Trying to do all these things at once at the outset is not something that I would recommend, just if you're not willing to put in the extremely long and tiring hours, as so many of our industry, counterparts and friends have. That's not to say that it's not worth it, but it is an extremely difficult challenge to accomplish.
Yeah, 100% agree. And long hours and coming in on the weekends definitely helps as much as possible. But like you said, I mean, you get out of it what you put into it at the end of the day. And that's also the reason why I personally love the cannabis industry, is like, especially on the cultivation side, is you really get to see, your hard work literally flower. And, you get to see everything you put into it come right back out of it at the end of that harvest. So,
the plants are a lot more like people than we give them credit for.
Yes.
You got to be nice to them. You got to talk nice to them. If you bother them, they'll start to behave strangely. They're living organisms. They're living things, and you're right. It's fascinating to actually watch something, bloom in front of you. And when you're building out one of these facilities, to see the walls come up around you, when we, so much of us just our work today is operating in this digital world. To be around physical things moving around you is a bit of a different perspective that I think is valuable. Just to see how much volume has to move, how many things have to happen for one person to get 1/8 at a dispensary. It's a lot of moving pieces, but it's really fun to watch it all come together.
And then just to get one little 0.5 gram vape cartridge, everything has to go into that process. Oh man, you got to squeeze the juice as much as you can. Well, I know that, like you said, y'all been operating for roughly 2+ years now. I mean, what are y'all's aspirations in the market? Maybe, you speak on Remedy, speak on yourself. What are the aspirations that you see as the market grows and progresses here in Mississippi?
Yeah, I think about that more in the broader context of the program. I think the main thing that we're focused on is ensuring that we do what we can to make sure that people have access to the program at a fundamental level. And that's really about education, word of mouth, making sure that people know this is an option for them and they have the opportunity to try it out. It might not be for them, but at least they have the opportunity. So that's really about providing a good experience, providing good products so the word gets around that people want to participate in the program. And then once they're in the program, trying to find ways to reduce the frictions for that consumer, patient, whatever you want to call them. And that really is about ensuring that people are able to get what they need when they need it at a price point that's reasonable. And, Mississippi is, it's a state where there's not a ton of purchasing power, and we want to make sure that we meet our consumers where they are and provide products that are reasonably priced, that are of sound quality. That's what we're all about trying to do. So that has everything to do with, making sure that when they come and buy a product, that they understand exactly what they're getting, and really educating our customers on why even bother with this whole cannabis program thing when you could, maybe access the traditional market or just do something else. And it's really about ensuring that people understand that the products are tested, they're safe, you know exactly what you're getting. And over time, I would expect for the prices to come in such that it's competitive with other alternatives if they haven't already.
Yeah. Because, I mean, like you said, accessibility is everything, especially right now in the early stages for this industry here in Mississippi. And economic accessibility is part of that topic. So, with that being said, around education and just people knowing through word of mouth, have you come across a lot of people in the state of Mississippi, more recently that aren't even aware of the program? Because I have, and it's shocking.
It happens all the time. I mean, as we're talking today, the amount of cards that have been issued is right around 40,000. Of that, there's probably 36,000 cards that are actually active. I think by the end of the year, we're going to be somewhere between, 50 and 60,000 active cards, hopefully. In a state of 3 million people, the industry consensus is that around 3% of the state's population will end up having a card at some point, which seems like a lot, but then you go to the grocery store and somebody asks you what you do for work, and they don't even know that cannabis is a thing. And that's something that we as an industry just have to continue to have conversations in a public forum like we're doing today, and make sure that everybody knows that this is a legitimate program, it's legal, and there's lots of benefits for people to have access to it, even if they're not sure that this product is for them. It's at least worth a try. So again, thank you for having this podcast, because I think these kinds of efforts are really critical when we're limited in what we can do from an advertising standpoint. So, just education is critical.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the focus of these podcasts really, is like, we'll talk about the science behind the plant, understand the education around the plant. And really, I feel like on this podcast in particular, we've talked really about the business behind it. And, that's what we're about, is really making sure that patients and non-patients who are interested in the program are, getting the right information. Because I mean, it really does shock me that some people in the state, like you said, 74% of the population voted in, and we still don't fully educate the state that there is a program available.
Yeah, I mean, it's 74% of the people that actually voted, so it's not 74% of the whole population, but your point's well taken. Yeah. I'm surprised at the level of, or I guess the lack of just general public understanding of what the program is, but that's going to improve over time. And I think it's up to us to let people know, right? People just aren't going to wake up and Google it. They might see a dispensary pop up down their street, but we need the network effects to kick in with people just talking about their experiences. That's why all the way from production to the very point of sale in a dispensary, it's, the industry will benefit from a collective commitment to excellent service, because people will tell their friends, they'll tell their neighbors, hey guys, this is actually a thing. And that's really that's the best that we can do, given the lack of our ability to actually advertise in traditional ways.
Yeah. Well, I know we're coming up on time, but I do want to ask you before we wrap up, what's the direct impact that cannabis has had in your life? And not like a bit from a business perspective, but really personally, like, what impact has the plant or the product had with you?
Well, everybody that I know knows somebody that has or could have benefited from at least having access to the product to see if it could have helped them in their ailments, or giving them some kind of relief. I know that there are people in my family that would apply to, but every day in our dispensaries, we hear from people firsthand, firsthand accounts of how this product has helped them get off of certain medications, how it's changed their life, how they're finally getting a good night's sleep. And people are sincerely and genuinely appreciative of what our businesses as an industry are bringing, because I think they do see how much work goes into it when they're in there every day. They understand how difficult it is to ensure that we meet all the various stringent requirements and operate compliantly, as we all want to do. But just hearing from people firsthand every day about how it's changed their lives is something that's been really, really fun for me, and moving to hear every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the biggest message that we've gotten out of this is, if you're thinking about coming to work in cannabis, go for it. Jump right into it. Feet first. If you're thinking about trying it and you have a medically qualifying condition, please speak with your doctor. And if you get the opportunity to be part of the program, give it a shot at the end of the day. If it doesn't work out, that's fine. But be educated, make educated decisions at the end of the day. Don't just take something for, off the street. Don't listen to someone that may not have your best interest in mind. Go speak with a physician, understand the benefits, understand the program as a whole, and then from there, make that decision. So, man, I really appreciate you coming on here and speaking with us. I think that we're probably going to reach back out and have you come back on, because I feel like we have a lot more to unbox and talk about. But really, thank you very much. And for all those that are listening, you can roll that up and smoke it. Thank you all.